My son saved $5,300 from working after school for his first car. My parents emptied it for my brother's birthday trip, without permission. My son whispered, "They took everything." Mom said, "He's young. He can earn it again. Your brother deserves one good memory." I smiled and said, "Absolutely." Then I canceled the $37,000 travel package I'd secretly paid for, and the laminated paycheck stub was still pinned to the fridge when Wyatt walked into the kitchen that Sunday morning. $187.40. Macon Hardware, his first paycheck. I had laminated it myself at the FedEx on Vinville Avenue the day he brought it home, and I had pinned it to the fridge with a small magnet shaped like a truck that Rudy Stubbs gave me when I bought my first rig 14 years ago. The lamination was starting to yellow at the edges. The ink was still sharp. 14 months of after-school shifts. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Sorting inventory. Sweeping concrete floors. Running the register when Mr. Vickers went to lunch. $5,300 saved in a joint account at Macon Federal Credit Union. Enough for a used car. Enough for a 15-year-old to feel like he had built something real with his own two hands. Wyatt was standing at the counter with his phone in both hands, and his face had the look a face gets when the number on the screen does not match the number in your head and you have checked it 3 times and it still does not match. "Dad." His voice was barely above the hum of the refrigerator. "They took everything." He turned the phone toward me. Account balance, no cents. Last transaction, withdrawal, $5,300. Cash, February 7th. Yesterday, the teller's initials. A co-signer authorization code I recognized because I had set up the account myself. My father's code. Cliff Tatum, the secondary custodian on the account because the credit union required a local co-signer when I was on the road hauling freight across the Southeast. I had asked Dad because he lived 8 minutes from the branch. Because I trusted him. Because he was my father, and my son was his grandson, and I did not think those two facts needed a contract. Wyatt did not cry. He stood there with his phone and his empty account, and his eyes drifted up to the laminated paycheck stub on the fridge. And he pressed his lips together the way I taught him to press them together when someone hands you something you did not earn and you need a second before you respond. He learned that from watching me. I learned it from 20 years of driving freight and biting my tongue when dispatchers shorted my miles and brokers delayed my checks, and the world treated a truck driver like a man who did not know how to count. I put my hand on the back of his neck. I held it there for a long time. His shoulders were shaking, but his face was dry, and his jaw was set, and he was 15 years old, and the first lesson he was learning about the world was that the people who are supposed to protect your savings are sometimes the people who empty them. The paycheck stub was right there on the fridge. $187.40. The number that started everything. He had brought that check home in September of the previous year and held it out to me like it was a diploma. I remember his exact words, "Dad. I made this. Not I earned this. Not I got paid. I made this." Like the money was something he had built with his hands, which in a way it was. "I will fix it," I told him. He nodded once. He did not ask how. He trusted me the way a 15-year-old trusts a father who has never lied to him, which is completely and without conditions. That trust was the heaviest thing I carried out of the kitchen that morning. Heavier than the betrayal. Heavier than the anger. Because now I had to earn it. 4 hours later, we were at my parents' table for Sunday dinner. Patrice had made pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the kind she makes when she is hosting a version of events she needs everyone to agree to before the plates are cleared. Cliff was at the head of the table with his sleeves rolled up and his reading glasses folded on a napkin beside his fork. Mitch sat across from me with Dina next to him. He was wearing a new pearl snap shirt I had never seen before. Tags off, collar stiff. Uncle Clayton and Aunt Peg were at the end. Wyatt sat to my left. He had not spoken since the kitchen. The good plates were out. The ones with the gold trim that Patrice keeps in the china cabinet and only uses when she needs the room to feel formal enough that nobody questions what she is about to say. Mitch had a wonderful birthday, Mom announced while passing the potatoes. The grill house was just perfect. 12 of us. They did a chocolate torte. Dina, tell him about the torte. Dina smiled. It was 3 layers. I had not been invited to the dinner. I had been on the road, hauling a load of produce from Valdosta to the warehouse in Macon, and nobody had called. Nobody had texted. 12 people at the table, and my name was not on the list. Wyatt, Mom turned to him with the warm, steady smile she uses when she is about to explain something she has already decided is settled. Your grandfather needed to access some of the savings for your uncle's celebration. Mitch has been through such a difficult season since losing his job. He deserved one good memory after everything he has been through. Wyatt looked at his plate. His fork was in his right hand, but he was not eating. The carrot sat untouched. Mom looked at me. He is young, Hayes. He can earn it again. Your brother deserves one good memory. I do not understand why anyone would make this into a problem. I almost stood up right there. Almost put both palms on the table and listed every dollar I had poured into this family for 3 years. But Wyatt was sitting next to me with his fork untouched and his jaw set, and the room had 4 witnesses who would hear whatever I chose to say next. And I knew that if I exploded now, they would call me the angry one, and the money would disappear into the noise. So I waited. I let the pot roast steam rise between us. I let the clock on the wall tick 3 times. Uncle Clayton had frozen with his glass halfway to his mouth. Peg put her napkin in her lap and fixed her eyes on the tablecloth. Dina adjusted Mitch's collar the way she always does when the room gets quiet, like she is managing a mannequin instead of a person. Mitch looked at me with the expression I have seen my entire life, the look of a man who has learned that if he stays still long enough, someone else will carry the weight. And then Mom pushed it further. Because she always pushes it further. She set her fork down. She looked at Wyatt first, then at me, and her voice dropped into the low, certain register she uses when she has decided that the room belongs to her. Hayes. That boy works at a hardware store, sorting nails into bins. You drive a truck for a living. Neither of you is building anything that lasts. Mitch lost his job because the economy punishes smart people. Your son can earn $5,000 in a year. My other son cannot earn back his pride. So stop acting like a savings account makes you a father. Uncle Clayton put his glass down. He put it down slowly, the way a man puts something down when he wants his hands free but does not yet know what he will do with them. Peg's eyes went to the tablecloth and stayed there. Wyatt's fork lowered to his plate without a sound. Your son sorts nails into bins. You drive a truck. A savings account does not make you a father. She delivered that sentence with my son sitting 4 feet from her mouth, in front of his uncle, in front of his aunt, in front of his brother's girlfriend, in front of a table full of people eating pot roast that I had indirectly paid for because the grocery autopay came from my account too. I waited 4 seconds. I let the sentence land. I let it sit in the room the way a freight load sits on a scale when you know the number is wrong, but you need the printout before you can dispute it. Absolutely, I told her. I smiled. I pushed my chair back. I stood up. I walked to the fridge and unpinned the laminated paycheck stub and put it in my jacket pocket next to where it had been pressing all afternoon. Wyatt watched me do it. Nobody else noticed because they were all watching Mom's face, which had shifted into the satisfied expression of a woman who believes she has settled the matter. Let us go, bud. Wyatt stood up without a word. We walked out through the screen door. Nobody followed. Nobody called after us. The door clicked shut behind us with the sound of a house that was about to lose every dollar it did not know it was receiving. The truck smelled like diesel and cold vinyl. I put the key in the ignition and sat there for a moment with my hands on the wheel. The paycheck stub was in my jacket pocket, pressed flat against my chest. Wyatt was in the passenger seat with his hands between his knees, staring at the dashboard. We drove for 6 minutes without speaking. Past the Dollar General, past the VFW, past the credit union where Dad had walked in with his ID and his cosigner code and withdrawn 14 months of my son's after-school labor in a single transaction. You are not going to yell at them? Wyatt asked. No. Why not? Because yelling is what they expect. It lets them call me angry and unreasonable, and then they do not have to answer for the money. I am going to do something quieter. He looked at the paycheck stub pressing against my jacket. Is it going to be bad for them? I glanced at him. It is going to be accurate. He nodded. He looked out the window. He did not ask anything else, and I did not say anything else, and the truck rolled through Macon in the kind of silence that happens between two people who both know a line has been crossed and neither one is going to pretend it has not. If you are watching this story and you have ever had someone steal from your child and tell you it does not matter, you are in the right place. Welcome to Family Secret Tales. That night at 9, I sat in the cab of my Kenworth T680 at the Macon Flying J truck stop. Engine off. Parking lights on. 3 other rigs idling in the row behind me. The paycheck stub was on the dash, leaning against the GP's mount. I picked up my phone and dialed Arctic Wave Cruises, the same company whose cold chain seafood I haul from Juneau to Atlanta 6 times a year. The same company whose logistics manager calls me by name because I kept his king crab shipment alive through a January ice storm when 2 other carriers dumped their loads. I need to cancel booking AW 4417. Account name, Tatum Cold Freight. Business American Express, ending 3062. The agent pulled it up. 10-day Alaska Inside Passage Cruise, August departure, 4 cabins, 8 passengers. Total package, $37,000. Deposit paid, $12,800. Balance remaining, $24,200 in monthly installments from my business card. The $12,800 deposit will be refunded to the original card within 5 business days, the agent confirmed. All future installments will stop. Would you like me to process the cancellation? Process it. The call lasted 4 minutes. In that time, a 10-day family cruise that Mom had been telling people about since October disappeared from the booking system. I had booked it 14 months ago as a surprise for my mother, who had talked about seeing Alaska since I was 12 years old. I got the corporate rate because the Arctic Wave logistics manager owed me a favor. I had been paying the monthly installments while driving 11-hour dot shifts across Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and the Carolinas, hauling produce and frozen shrimp and pallets of king crab. Mom did not know I was paying for it. She thought Dad had arranged it through a travel agent. Nobody in the family had contributed a single dollar. I held the paycheck stub under the cab light. $187.40. Wyatt had counted inventory for that money. He had swept concrete floors for that money. He had stood behind a register making change for contractors and DIY dads for that money. And my father had walked into a credit union with his credentials and emptied every cent for a birthday dinner I was not invited to. I did not know yet where all the money went. I would find out Thursday, and it would be worse than I imagined. I almost called Mom right there from the truck cab. Almost let the cruise number drop and listened to the silence. But Rudy always told me the same thing about deliveries. If you unload too early, you lose the freight. The full invoice was not ready yet. The full picture was not clear. So I put the stub back on the dash and drove to the yard and went home. Monday morning, my office at the Tatum Cold Freight Yard on Eisenhower Parkway. 3 trucks in the lot. 2 on the road. 1 in the shop for a compressor rebuild. I opened QuickBooks on the desktop and clicked the Recurring Payments tab. 7 autopays. All running from the Tatum Cold Freight business account. All going to my family. All set up by me over the past 3 years. Because every time I said no, Mom called and cried about the house or the insurance or Mitch's truck or her dental bills, and I would add another line item to the ledger and drive another load to cover it. Parents' home insurance, $200 a month. Car insurance for both vehicles, $400 a month. Mitch's F-250 truck payment, $680 a month. Property tax supplement, $267 a month. Dental billing account, $517 a month. Pharmacy copay account, $120 a month. Grocery delivery service, $85 a month. I selected all 7. I clicked stop. The screen asked me to type confirm. I typed it once. $2,269 a month. $27,228 a year. Off. Rudy Stubbs walked in at 7:15 with 2 coffees and a clipboard. 61 years old. Drove rigs for 34 years. Taught me to back a 53-foot reefer into a loading dock when I was 21 and too proud to admit I needed a spotter. He drove the second truck in my fleet, and he was the reason I owned a business instead of hauling loads for someone else's name on the door. He set the coffee on my desk, looked at the QuickBooks screen, looked at my face. "How bad?" he asked. They emptied Wyatt's savings. $5,300 for Mitch's birthday. Rudy lifted his coffee, took one sip, set it back down without looking away from me. "What do you need?" "I need Dixie to pull every receipt from the last 3 years, everything I have paid for this family, everything." He called Dixie from the dispatch phone. She arrived within the hour with her laptop and a box of file folders. By Tuesday, the picture was getting worse. I called Macon Federal Credit Union from the dispatch desk and asked for the branch manager. A woman named Sandra picked up. I gave her the account number and asked her to confirm the February 7th withdrawal. The withdrawal was authorized by the secondary custodian, Sandra explained. Clifford Tatum. He presented valid ID and signed the withdrawal slip at the counter. The account terms allow any listed custodian to make a cash withdrawal up to the full balance. My 15-year-old son saved that money over 14 months, working after school. He did not authorize the withdrawal. I did not authorize the withdrawal. My father walked into your branch and took every dollar. Sandra paused. Mr. Tatum, the account terms are clear. Any listed custodian can withdraw. If you would like to modify the custodial access, you would need to open a new account. I will be doing that. I hung up and sat in the dispatch chair staring at the wall where the load board hung. The withdrawal slip had Dad's signature, not Mom's, not Mitch's. Dad, the man who had sat at the head of the Sunday dinner table with his sleeves rolled up and his reading glasses folded on a napkin and had not said a single word while his wife told my son that his savings did not matter. He had not defended Wyatt. He had not apologized. He had not even looked at him. Because looking at Wyatt would have meant looking at what he had done. And Cliff Tatum had spent 66 years building a life around not looking directly at anything his wife told him to do. I almost drove to their house that afternoon. Almost pulled the Kenworth into their driveway and put the withdrawal confirmation on the kitchen table and watched Dad's face come apart. But Dixie was still pulling numbers, and a half-loaded trailer tips over on a curve. A full one rolls straight. The paycheck stub was on my desk, propped against the monitor. Every time I looked at it, I saw Wyatt's face at the counter and the words "they took everything," and I knew I had to wait until the invoice was complete. Wednesday, Dixie printed the summary on Tatum Cold Freight letterhead. 3 years of receipts, every payment categorized, every date timestamped, every check number and card transaction logged. Home insurance $7,200, car insurance $14,400, Mitch's truck $24,480, property tax $9,600, dental $18,620, grocery delivery $3,060, holiday gifts and emergency repairs $18,340, Alaska cruise deposit and installments $12,800 paid to date, miscellaneous $11,600, fuel money, toll reimbursements, Mitch's phone bills, Mom's tablet, Dad's fishing license, the new water heater in January 2025. Total $187,400. Rudy stood next to Dixie's desk and looked at the printout. He tapped the total with his index finger. "That is 2 rigs and a down payment on a warehouse," he said quietly. $187,400 in 3 years. And the family's response when a 15-year-old's savings were emptied for a birthday party he was not invited to was, "He can earn it again." Thursday morning, my phone buzzed with a group text from Mom. She had forwarded a screenshot from the family chat. Something about Mitch's new jacket. She was proud of the jacket. She wanted everyone to see how good Mitch looked. But the screenshot showed more than the jacket photo. At the top of Mitch's phone screen, partially visible behind the notification bar, was a bank alert. Regions Bank. ATM withdrawal. $2,800. Location: Harrah's Cherokee Casino and Resort. Date, February 7th, 9:47 p.m. Same day as the birthday dinner. Same day Dad emptied Wyatt's account. 9:47 p.m., which meant Mitch had left the steakhouse, driven 50 minutes to the casino, and started pulling cash from an ATM within 3 hours of blowing out the candles on a birthday celebration funded by a 15-year-old's labor. Mom had forwarded the screenshot without even noticing. She was looking at the jacket. She was not looking at the notification bar because she had spent 35 years not looking at the things about Mitch that did not fit the story she was telling. I zoomed in. I saved the screenshot. I sent it to Dixie. Then I sat in my dispatch chair with the laminated paycheck stub in my hand and did the math. $5,300 taken from Wyatt's account. $1,400 on the Grill House birthday dinner for 12 people, none of whom were me or my son. $1,100 on new clothes, including the pearl snap shirt he wore to the dinner table where my mother told Wyatt his savings did not matter. And $2,800 at the Harrah's Cherokee poker room. My son had sorted nails into bins and swept hardware store floors for 14 months. And more than half of his savings went to a poker table 30 minutes after the birthday candles. And then Dixie found the second layer. She called me over to her laptop at the folding table in the dispatch office and pointed at a column of numbers she had highlighted in yellow. The dental billing account. I had been paying $517 a month into it for 3 years. Total, $18,600. She cross-referenced the payments against Mom's actual dental invoices from Dr. Kimball's office, which she obtained by calling the office directly and requesting a payment history. Actual dental costs, $11,200. The remaining $7,400 had been forwarded by Mom to a collections agency called Southern Recovery Associates, which handled Mitch's defaulted Visa card with a balance of $9,200. The property tax supplement showed the same pattern, $9,600 paid in over 3 years. $6,100 went to the Bibb County Tax Commissioner for actual property tax. $3,500 went to Mitch's at-and-T phone bill, his Gold's Gym membership, and a Regions Bank overdraft fee from November. She was splitting the payments, Dixie said, pushing her glasses up, routing enough to the actual bills to keep them current, then forwarding the surplus to cover Mitch's debts. She has been doing this since at least 2024. My mother had been laundering my generosity into her favorite son's bailout fund for years. $10,900 diverted. On top of the $24,480 I was already paying directly for Mitch's truck. On top of the $5,300 she orchestrated taking from my 15-year-old son's savings. On top of every pot roast dinner and every good plate and every sentence about how Mitch deserved one good memory while my son sat at the table with an empty bank account and a fork he was not using. If you have ever found out exactly where your money went and it was worse than you imagined, subscribe to Family Secret Tales and hit the bell. I called Mitch on Friday. He picked up on the second ring. I could hear a TV in the background and the sound of someone opening a can. Living in Mom's basement. 8 months unemployed. Opening a beer at 2 in the afternoon on a weekday. I saw the Harrah's receipt. 4 seconds of nothing. Then he cleared his throat. It was one night. I was stressed. You do not know what 8 months without a paycheck does to a man's head. His voice had the rehearsed tone of a man who has practiced this defense in the shower. $2,800 at a poker table. Same day Dad emptied my son's savings. I did not ask Dad to do that. That was Mom's idea. I did not even know about the savings account. You did not know, but you spent it. That is not fair, Hayes. What is not fair is a 15-year-old checking his bank account and seeing zero because his uncle needed casino money. I told you it was one night. I won $600 back. I was up for a while. You were up for a while. I let that sit. Mitch, Wyatt worked for 14 months, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. He sorted hardware inventory and swept concrete floors and ran a register. And you sat at a poker table for 3 hours and burned through more than half of it. Why do you always do this? Why do you always make me the villain? I lost my job. I lost my apartment. I am living in mom and dad's basement. You have a business. You have trucks. You have a house. And you are going to crucify me over one bad night? This phone call is not about one night. This phone call is to tell you that your truck payment stopped on Monday. Your insurance stopped. Mom and dad's insurance stopped. The cruise stopped. Everything stopped. 5 seconds of silence. The TV was still going in the background. The beer can did not open again. You cannot do that. His voice cracked at the edges. It is my business account, Mitch. Every payment came from my ledger. I stopped them all. He hung up. 40 minutes later, Mom called. Her voice hit the phone like a car alarm. What have you done? Mitch just called me shaking. Actually shaking, Hayes. You cannot pull his truck payment. That boy needs his truck to get back on his feet. He has interviews next week. He does not have interviews, Mom. He has a basement and a cable subscription and a poker habit. Do not talk about your brother like that. He is struggling. He is 35 years old, and he gambled my son's savings at Harrah's Cherokee. That is between Mitch and his personal finances. You have no right to throw that in his face. He threw it on a poker table. I am just reading the receipt. 3 seconds of silence. Then Mom's voice changed. It dropped to the low, certain register I have heard my entire life. The register that says she has decided which version of events is real, and I will accept it, or I will be the one who broke the family. Hayes, listen to me carefully. Your son works at a hardware store. He earns minimum wage sorting nails. He will make that money back in a year. Mitch has lost everything. His job, his apartment, his self-respect. You have 3 trucks and a business and a house and a 15-year-old who is healthy and strong. Why are you the one acting like you have been robbed? You have more than any of us. Act like it. I have more than any of you because I drive 11-hour shifts and I track every dollar, and I do not gamble, and I do not steal from children. Nobody stole from anyone. Your father made a family decision. My father signed a withdrawal slip without my knowledge or my son's knowledge and handed $5,300 in cash to a man who spent it at a casino. That is theft, Mom, and while we are on the subject, I know about the dental payments. Silence, longer this time. What about the dental payments? $18,600 over 3 years. $11,200 went to Dr. Kimball's office. $7,400 went to a collections agency covering Mitch's defaulted Visa card. You were skimming my support payments and routing them to your favorite son. Her breathing went shallow. The same breathing I heard from her when the cruise came up, but deeper now. The breathing of someone who assumed the receipts were just numbers and forgot that numbers have addresses. The cruise is canceled too, Mom. The t-shirts, the whale watching, the luggage, all of it. $37,000 that you told everyone at church about. Gone. She did not respond for 5 seconds. Then her voice broke. I already spent $2,420 on that trip. T-shirts, luggage, the whale watching deposit. That money is gone, Hayes, on your credit card, for a trip you were not paying for. That is your problem now. She hung up. That was Thursday. Saturday morning, I drove to Macon Federal Credit Union. I walked into the branch where my father had walked in 8 days ago with his co-signer code and his comfortable assumption that nobody would notice or care. I opened a new savings account. 2 names, Wyatt Tatum and Hayes Tatum. No secondary custodians. No co-signer access. No grandfather with a valid ID and a withdrawal slip and a daughter-in-law telling him it was fine because the boy is young. I transferred $5,300 from the Tatum Cold Freight operating account. The teller printed the confirmation receipt. I folded it and put it in the same jacket pocket where the paycheck stub had been. I drove home and put the new account statement on the kitchen table next to a glass of orange juice. Wyatt came downstairs in a Macon Hardware t-shirt. He picked up the statement, read the balance, read it again. His lips pressed together, and this time it was not the holding back press. It was something else. "This is the same amount," he said quietly. "That is your money. I replaced it from the business account. Nobody touches it but you and me. Not Grandpa, not Grandma, not your uncle. The only two signatures on this account are yours and mine." He looked at the fridge. The paycheck stub was back in its spot, repinned that morning with the truck magnet. $187.40. Still sharp. Still clean. He looked at the statement. He looked at me. He nodded the same nod I taught him. The one that means I understand. I will remember. And I know what it cost you. Sunday morning. Faith Baptist Church. The service ran long because Pastor Willard was doing a sermon series on forgiveness, and he kept going back to the parable of the prodigal son, which felt like a sign from a God with a specific sense of timing. The parking lot filled with the slow shuffle of families moving toward their cars. I waited near my truck. Rudy was 3 spaces back, engine off, window down, coffee cup balanced on the mirror bracket the way he has balanced coffee cups on every surface that was not designed for them for 35 years. Cliff and Patrice came out together. Cliff in his brown sport coat, the one he wears to church and funerals and nothing else. Patrice holding her Bible with both hands, pressed against her chest, the way she holds it when she is feeling righteous. Behind them, Mitch and Dina. Behind them, Uncle Clayton and Aunt Peg. Pastor Willard was on the steps shaking hands and nodding at car seats and complimenting women's hats. I walked toward Cliff. The manila folder was under my arm. Tatum Cold Freight letterhead on every page. Every payment, every date, every amount. 3 pages. The total on the last page circled in red Sharpie. "Dad," Cliff turned. His face showed the careful blankness of a man who has been expecting this moment and hoping it would not come in public. Mom turned with him. Clayton and Peg stopped 3 feet behind. Mitch froze near the church steps. Dina put her hand on his arm. I held out the folder. "This is everything I have paid for this family in 3 years." Cliff took the folder the way you take something you do not want to hold but cannot refuse in front of witnesses. He opened it. His eyes moved down the first page. Home insurance. Car insurance. Mitch's truck payment. His finger traced the monthly amounts. He turned to the second page. Dental, pharmacy, property tax. His reading glasses were in his coat pocket, but he did not reach for them. He was squinting. He turned to the third page. The cruise, the miscellaneous, and the total, $187,400. His right hand started trembling. The paper shook. Mom leaned over his shoulder and her face went completely still. The Bible was still pressed against her chest. Clayton stepped closer. He read the number from behind Cliff's shoulder. His jaw tightened. He looked at me, then at Cliff, then at the paper again, as if the number might change on a second reading. It did not. I kept my voice flat. The voice I use when I am reading a freight manifest to a broker and the numbers do not lie and there is nothing left to negotiate. Dad signed the withdrawal slip. Mitch spent it at Harrah's. The cruise refund hit my account this morning. $5,300. Wyatt earned every cent. Cliff's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His left hand grabbed the folder edge and crumpled the corner. The color left his neck in a slow wave moving upward until his face looked like old newsprint. His right hand, the one that had signed the withdrawal slip 9 days ago, was trembling so hard the invoice pages fluttered. His knees softened. Not a buckle. A slow giving. The body's first admission that the ground it is standing on has shifted. His breathing went shallow and fast. He took 1 step backward, then another, until his back hit the side of the Buick. The sport coat sagged on his shoulders like it belonged to a bigger man. Mom reached for his arm. He pulled away. That was the first time in 40 years I had seen my father refuse my mother's touch. She pulled her hand back and pressed it flat against her Bible. Mom tried to recover. "Hayes, this is not the place. You chose the place when you delivered that speech in front of my son, in front of Clayton, in front of Peg. You told me my son sorts nails into bins. You told me I drive a truck. You told me a savings account does not make me a father. I paused. That account had $187,400 in it. Every dollar came from my trucks and my loads and my dot shifts, and you funneled $10,900 of it to cover Mitch's debts without telling me. Pastor Willard had stopped shaking hands on the church steps. He stood with one hand on the railing, watching. Two women from the choir were near the hedgerow. A deacon holding a bulletin lowered it and looked at the ground. Peg whispered something to Clayton. They walked to their car without looking back. Their doors closed softly, the way doors close when people want to leave without becoming part of what they just witnessed. Mom clutched the Bible tighter against her chest. Her breathing was fast and ragged. She grabbed the folder from Cliff's shaking hands and pressed it against the Bible and walked to the car and sat in the passenger seat and pulled the door shut and stared through the windshield at the church steps without blinking. Cliff was still leaning against the Buick where I had left him. The sport coat hung loose. His hands were at his sides. His chin was on his chest. He looked like a man who had been standing for a very long time and had just realized there was nowhere to sit. I walked past Rudy's truck. He tapped the hood once with his open palm. Our road signal. Load delivered. The consequences arrived on schedule. February 28th. Car insurance lapsed on both vehicles. Mom got 2 letters from the carrier. She put them in the kitchen drawer with the cruise brochure she had been showing people at church since October. March 1st. Home insurance lapsed. The registered letter sat on the counter next to the bag of cruise t-shirts. 8 shirts. Tatum Family Alaska 2026 in navy blue. Nobody opened the bag. March 9th. Mitch's F-250 hit 45 days delinquent. The credit union sent a final notice. Mitch opened it at the parents' kitchen table. His jaw was steady, but his right leg bounced under the table and did not stop. Mom's church friend Gladys asked about the cruise at the next Bible study. I thought you all were heading to Alaska in August. I told my sister-in-law about it. She was so jealous. Mom pressed her lips together until they turned white. Plans changed. She excused herself. She was in the bathroom for 11 minutes. When she came back, the conversation had moved to casserole recipes. Nobody mentioned Alaska again. March 19th. Mom posted on Facebook. To my son Hayes and my grandson Wyatt. Families make mistakes. I pray we find our way back to each other. I love you both more than you know. 94 likes. 12 heart reacts. Mitch commented, love you, Mom. Dina posted a prayer emoji. 3 aunts from Savannah commented generic blessings. Hayes Tatum did not respond. Did not like. Did not comment. The silence sat on the page like an unanswered door. I almost answered that post. Almost typed something measured and calm and factual. But the post had 984 likes from people who did not know about the withdrawal slip or the poker room or the $10. 900 in diverted payments, and anything I wrote would become the story instead of the truth. So I let the silence stand. Silence is the one response a person who manages narratives cannot edit. If you have ever watched someone rewrite what happened and chosen not to correct them because the truth was already in the receipts, subscribe to Family Secret Tales. March 23rd. 5:48 a.m. A repo truck backed into the parents' driveway. The driver, a heavy man in a reflective vest who had done this 1,000 times, hooked the F-250 by the front axle. The tow chain tightened with a metallic click that carried through the morning quiet the way sounds carry when nobody is awake to absorb them. The truck rolled backwards down the driveway with Mitch's magnetic sign still stuck to the driver's door. Mitch Tatum. Sales professional. The letters caught the streetlight as the truck turned and disappeared past the Dollar General. Mom watched from the kitchen window in the same robe she had been wearing for 3 days. Her hand was on the curtain, but she did not pull it shut. Cliff stood on the porch in slippers with his hands at his sides. He did not wave. He did not call out. He watched the driveway empty the way a man watches something leave that he knows is not coming back, because he knows somewhere below the part of his brain that still listens to his wife, that he was the one who signed the slip that started everything. Cliff sat at the kitchen table 2 weeks after the truck was gone. 6:12 a.m. Coffee poured, not touched. The $187,400 invoice was open in front of him. The pages smooth flat, every line item visible. He had added the numbers 3 times. The total was the same every time. Patrice was in the bedroom with the door closed. She had not cooked dinner in 9 days. The crew's t-shirts were in the bag in the hall closet. The bag had not moved from where she set it down in November. The oil stain from Mitch's F-250 was still on the driveway. Nobody had scrubbed it. Nobody was going to. Saturday morning, April 11th. My kitchen in Macon. The sun is coming through the window over the sink, and the light catches the laminated paycheck stub on the fridge. $187.40. The FedEx lamination is starting to yellow at the edges, but the ink is still sharp, and the truck magnet holds it exactly where I pinned it in September, right at Wyatt's eye level, where he can see it every morning before school. Wyatt sits at the table with a used car listing from the Macon Telegraph, circled in red Sharpie. 2009 Honda Civic, $4,800, 142,000 miles, manual transmission, clean title. The seller's number is written on a napkin next to the listing. Wyatt has already called the seller once. The car is still available. He is going to test drive it this afternoon. The new savings account statement is on the table. Balance, $5,300. 2 names on the account. Wyatt Tatum. Hayes Tatum. Nobody else. No secondary custodians. No co-signer codes. No grandfather with a comfortable assumption and a withdrawal slip. Rudy Stubbs is at the counter with a plate of biscuits and a thermos of sweet tea. He is teaching Wyatt how to calculate fuel cost per mile on the back of a napkin, because Wyatt wants to know how much it will cost to drive the Civic to school and back every day. Wyatt keeps dividing the wrong way, and Rudy keeps tapping the pencil on the napkin and saying, "Close, run it again." He has been saying that to new drivers for 35 years. He has never once sounded impatient. He sounded patient with me when I could not back a trailer, and he sounds patient now with a 15-year-old who cannot do long division under pressure. Wyatt puts down the pencil, picks up the car listing, does the math in the margin with the red Sharpie. $5,300 minus $4,800 equals $500. He looks up at me. "What do I do with the extra $500, Dad?" I look at him. At the listing in his hand. At the paycheck stub on the fridge catching the light. At Rudy at the counter with his thermos and his biscuits and his patience. At the account statement on the table with 2 names on it, and neither one of them belongs to a man who would walk into a credit union and empty a child's savings for a birthday party. Save it. Rudy catches my eye across the counter. He taps the side of his thermos once. The same signal we have used on the road for 14 years. Load delivered. The paycheck stub catches the morning light on the fridge one more time. $187.40. The first dollar my son ever earned. The one thing nobody in that family thought was worth protecting. The one thing I made sure came back.